Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jaya Kula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
Do you think that doing things out of devotion makes mistakes less likely that happen when one is acting out of fear?
Absolutely. Because when you're acting out of fear, you're not really thinking of other people. So you have inside your fear bubble, you have certain ideas about what is the right way to do this so that I will do it right. Right? It's all me focused. I want to do it right because I want to be the one who does it right, and I don't want to be criticized or judged in any way. So you're just in that bubble of what is the right way. But there isn't one right way all the time, and there's many people involved. If we're focused on others, like real others, not some abstract idea of others, but the real others that we're serving, then we can adjust what we're doing for those people or beings or spaces, and we can be responsive in a much more accurate way. This is a ridiculous example, and no one here would do this, but I could imagine someone would do this if they were really stuck in their fear a lot more deeply than anybody here. But let's say that we have like a protocol for setting up the space here, and we do have a protocol that involves the cushions being in a certain way, and people are generally pretty careful about trying to put the cushions in the right way. But what about if someone comes and needs to have a place to lie down, and we need to have an alternate arrangement of the cushions? Well, someone who's very fear-based is going to get upset about that, possibly. They're not going to be thinking about the real circumstance. They're going to be thinking, oh no, Shambhavi or somebody said, do it this way. And even if they don't voice it, they might get nervous because they have to do something differently, even though it's in the service of what the real circumstance is. So then it becomes clumsy and imprecise because it's based on this one right way. The more anxious we are about not being judged, the more likely we are to have a one right way attachment. Even if we are being given very precise instructions, if we're very nervous, we're likely to miss instructions and miss things. Because anxiety and fear take our attention away. They bind our attention. So then it's like we're not actually perceiving as well as we would if we were more relaxed. For instance, if I say there's going to be a new protocol about where cushions should be and they're very precise, I want you to get this exactly right. Suddenly you're having an anxiety attack. And 50% of what I'm about to say next isn't going to get in. And then I'm going to say later, I told you to put this cushion over there 3 inches from the wall. And you're going to say, I never heard that. You didn't say that. And you literally didn't hear it, right? Because you were like, oh my God, I'm going to do it wrong. Oh my God. This is a joke, by the way, people. Lest you think I'm actually giving these kind of instructions. It turns out that anything that's too self-focused is exhausting. It turns out that worrying about yourself at all is actually exhausting.
I have a question about closing chants and chanting Shanti. The only way I've ever heard that translated is peace, and shared a lot about peace lately, I mean in a specific context, but I'm wondering how to understand that.
Well, if you notice, I try to make space in between each of those mantras. And in those spaces, there's transmission of peace happening. That's what it means. Mantras can sometimes be translated into meanings, like a word. Sometimes they can't. So obviously, like, names of deities are mantras, and the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet are mantras. And then there's mantras like Shanti that can be translated, but then there's mantras like Freeing that have no meaning. But whether they have a meaning or not, the main point is what they do, what they convey to you, what they open up for you.
I unfriended a Facebook friend today. It's someone who I really have never met live. They are QAnon, and they post a lot of things about conspiracy theories, and I've kept them as a friend for a very long time, just because I was like, I kind of want to see what some of the discourses out there are, even if I totally disagree with them. Her posts are kind of wackadoodle, in my opinion. Finally, I just kind of got disturbed, and I was like, I just don't need this disturbance. So I unfriended her, and this happened with someone else maybe like a year or so ago, but a different situation. There's part of me that feels like it's a little bit harmful in our world that we all have these bubbles. But turns out I like my bubble to some degree. There's just some stuff I can't digest, even though I value cross-pollination a little bit. I just wanted to see if you had any comments.
You know, my benchmark about everything is pretty much usefulness. Is it useful to me? Am I useful to somebody else? Is there any business I have in this relationship? Sometimes there is for a little while. Like maybe you're testing your ability to host certain things. But then eventually you've tested, you're done. Now you're gone. And there's nothing really happening. And listening or seeing someone's off the wall, unintelligent, probably racially motivated posts over and over and over again for years on end. I mean, there's just no point to that. Nobody's learning or getting anything out of that. You're just in their loop. Yeah. Somebody said something interesting on Substack. The Left Hook and Democracy-ish. You guys ever heard of these news shows? They're very, very good. Anyway, one person said the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy is that conspiracies eventually get found out and fall apart, while conspiracy theories just pivot and continue. You can't really unmask them because there's no there. I thought that was pretty smart.
I'm going to be spending a week with my family. I'll be sharing a cabin with 7 or 10 other people and a dog. I was just wondering if you have any advice for how to do sadhana.
You have to go outside. When I'm in that kind of situation, I mean, I haven't been recently, but I used to be when I was younger. What I would do is when I arrive at wherever it is, the campsite or the hotel or wherever you're going to be, the first thing I do is like I scout out a practice space, somewhere I can go in the morning and that looks like it would be a good spot away from everybody. Mm. That's how you do it. Even when I used to take long road trips and stay in cheesy motels, I would drive until I found a motel that backed up to some sort of wooded area. And then I would ask for a room on that side of the motel so I could look out into some trees instead of a motel parking lot. Sometimes I drove too many miles looking for something like that before I found it.
I've been sort of pondering this thing I saw on a church sign. This one said, "What God desires, God inspires." And it just got me thinking about, does God desire something for us? And is there a relationship between desire and inspiration?
I just flashed on Bunny asking her philosophical questions.
What dog is?
Yeah. What dog is? Why dog is? I don't know what perspective that's coming from. I couldn't possibly know what the person who put it up there meant by it. But desire, in the way that we experience desire when it's less conditioned, is that it has no object. So although there are local stories being told, narratives we're enacting, they are improvisational, and anything could change direction at any moment. If I were to think of like God desires, we inspire, I would think more that we are God enacting that objectless desire. Our own desires are very directed. I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that. Even in our spiritual life, I want to have this experience, or I want to be self-realized, or I want such and such a thing. But those desires, from an absolute perspective, those are just games being played. Right? As Ma said, sadhana is playfulness. So even the desire for self-realization that's the grand leela that's being played, right? Because everything already is an aspect of awakened essence nature. Nothing needs to wake up. This is really entertainment. And we are enacting it. As Ma said, we are the arms and legs of God. We're having experiences that somehow we're autonomous or separate beings. We think, well, this is important or that's important. But from the perspective of the whole, everything, every single thing is self-expression. Right? It's like just a free self-expression. There's no overarching plan other than self-expression, and that's not really a plan because it's the nature of reality. A plan you can change, the nature of yourself you can't change. From the perspective of the played, there's plenty of desires that are being inspired. From the perspective of the player, there's just the exuberance of self-expression without object. It's the difference between a fountain and a fire hose. A fire hose is like one direction. A fountain's all directions.
My question today was, Ma talks about women weren't allowed to, say, Om or Gayatri Mantra, and then she shattered all of that. She said, so you, to everybody in the Satsang, she says, you have the right to recite Om because you are all Brahmins. And she says, start with Om. In the end, the knot will be cut by the Om. It is a must. Once the knot is cut, then there's no question of Brahman, etc. I was wondering whether you know what she means.
Well, in Kundalini Yoga, knots represent major areas of karmic entanglement. If I were to guess what she was talking about, she's taking that idea of the knot and just saying, we have karmic limitation. And one of the limitations is thinking that women can't chant certain mantras. And then another limitation, which she sort of slyly slipped in there, is thinking we're Brahmins. Another knot is caring, we're of a certain caste. But the mantra itself will divest you of the knot, the karmic entanglement of thinking that there's any such thing as a Brahmin and that it's important in any way.
I just didn't understand what she meant by the knot, and my literal brain was just going to entanglement, but I know that she was probably meaning something much more.
No, that's what she means. No, but the knot means a karmic knot. The entanglement of having these dogmas, of thinking only certain people can recite a mantra, certain gender, certain caste. That's the knot that she's talking about. She often does that. She'll answer a question that's local, and then she'll go on this journey out to the most absolute statement about something. So she starts with, who can chant Om, and now all of a sudden everyone's a Brahmin, and then nobody's a Brahmin. Yeah. So she's kind of making this map and telling you kind of what I was starting with, that sadhana is playfulness. You people take this stuff so seriously, but everything's already enlightened, so get over yourselves. We're doing this to discover that, right? I love how it's she's giving teachings for so many different people in different conditions simultaneously. I bet a lot of people who were listening to her give that teaching didn't even understand what she was saying in the end. Maybe there was one person there who got it. But she's always mindful of that one person who's going to understand the whole thing.
It's funny how much there's argument with people who are asking questions. Sometimes asking very simple questions, and then they ask these very kind of highfalutin questions, and she just makes fun of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she
It was
got a
great
lot of
compassion.
arrogant men trying to trick her or like trip her up somehow by getting very philosophical and highfalutin with her. She was the cat and they were the mouse, basically. And occasionally she gets into these very, very long back and forths with somebody. She's just playing and playing and playing, and they do not get it. And they're just like getting more and more serious and exercised. And but what about this? But what about that? But what? It must have been amazing to see that happen in person and hear her laughing, and it was never mean. It was always like the way that you would talk to a bratty teenager that you really actually like. You could tell that she was enjoying herself.
Satsang with Shambhavi is produced by Jaya Kula, a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. If you enjoyed listening, please help us keep this podcast and many other teachings open to all by making a monthly or one-time donation. Visit jayakula.org to make a donation and explore more of our offerings.